Hi, dreamers. Whenever I tweet out something like this about ticker symbol O being my number one REIT with $62,000 over 1,200 shares, generating about $3,800 a year in dividends, I always get somebody who says, and it's down a smooth 21%. Or, this is definitely not the flex you think it is. Well, I'm not trying to flex for anyone. I'm just reporting out the news. So let's check into the news. What is going on with O? Is it doomed? Should we all run? What exactly is going on? And as you know, I'm going to keep this pretty high level and conversational. So first, let's take a look at O. Currently, as of October, at $49.42. And if you take a look at that momentum over the last 5 years, it's pretty low. From the absolute lowest at about $37 during the crash of the pandemic, we're getting pretty low on O, which makes a lot of people very nervous. And one of the things I just wanted to point out from the S&P is just the broader understanding that rising interest rates do pose a challenge for REITs. And why is that? Well, it's because, all else being equal, higher interest rates tend to decrease the value of properties and increase REIT borrowing costs. And so the interest rates alone have really hit the REIT industry hard, no matter where you're talking about. And so what do I mean when I talk about the REIT industry? What kinds of REITs are there? Well, one of the industry sources is no REIT. And just to explain, there are gaming REITs that really focus on real estate assets in the casino and entertainment business. Then there's office REITs, which are focused on more commercial assets in business districts. Then, of course, there's industrial REITs, and these are like warehouses and distribution centers that play a central role in e-commerce. And then you have retail REITs that are focused on things like regional malls, outlet centers, grocery C-stores, or convenience stores, and gas stations. You've got lodging or hotel REITs. You've got residential REITs, so think about those apartment buildings. And you've got even like land REITs, which are REITs that specialize in literally the forest. There are healthcare REITs, so all of the hospitals and senior living facilities, self-storage REITs like PSA and Cube, infrastructure REITs, so things like telecom towers, energy pipelines, and then there's data center REITs that are just there to keep the servers cool and safe. So as you can see, there's a variety of different REITs that you could be investing in, and it's actually important to understand the macro conditions that affect each of these REITs in addition to the financial decisions that each individual REIT is making. So let's take a look at Realty Income just to understand what kind of REIT they are. And as you can see here, they've got 13% industrial, 2.7% gaming, a very small percentage of other, but primarily over 80% they are in retail. So they're pretty focused, and I would label them a retail REIT. Now, you've probably seen this graph many times, but their occupancy rate is extremely high and has remained extremely high from a low of 96%-ish to a high of 99% now for a very long time. And their top 10 industries include convenience stores, grocery stores, dollar stores, home improvement, drug, some restaurants, health and fitness, and some others. Now, one of the reasons why people think the stock price may have dipped is because of headlines like this. Realty Income investing about $1 billion in the Bellagio in Las Vegas, which, okay, let's be honest, the typical investor of O is extremely conservative, and the gaming and entertainment business is a lot more volatile. So them investing about $1 billion into the almost $5 billion Bellagio was a little bit of a jolt to the conservative investor. But if you think about it, that can't possibly be the biggest effect on the stock price. So another point of conversation is looking into their clients. And here you can see that Dollar General is their top client at 3.8%, followed by Walgreens at another 3.8% and Dollar Tree at 3.3%. Okay, so now we're seeing headlines like this, where CVS, Walgreens, and Rite Aid are closing thousands of stores. And here in this recent CNN article, you can see Rite Aid is third largest standalone pharmacy chain, has filed for bankruptcy, and they represent over 2,000 stores. And part of the reason covered in this article is just that CVS, Walgreens, and Rite Aid are really facing rising competition from Amazon and the big box stores with their pharmacies, especially in rural areas. So when you look at the advantages of retail REITs, some of the advantages include really being e-commerce agnostic, because there are some things that a lot of people continue to want to get from the local stores. Things like groceries and very small items like from dollar stores. And of course, gas and home improvement with very large items. All of those things are considered to be Amazon-proof. And when thinking about some of the risks of retail REITs, here you go. The interest rate risk is number one, potentially a recession risk if consumer discretionary dollars go down, and of course any risk of disruption by e-commerce. And so if you look back at their client diversification, you might think, okay, Walgreens might be at a risk of e-commerce disruption, and the dollar stores might have a little bit of an impact from consumer discretionary if recession starts to hit. But by and large, we're talking about fractions of percentages in a very diversified portfolio of over 13,000 commercial properties and over 1,300 different clients in 85 separate industries across the US primarily. But although I don't want to overwhelm you with a bunch of boring analysis, let's take a look at a couple of numbers that just point out some of the things that I see. So I'm taking a look at the balance sheet, and I'm just noticing that their long-term debt has gone up quite a bit. And you can see here, from 2018 at $6 billion to about $20 million in last report. And honestly, guys, in a rising rate environment, this is really the key number to be focused on. The question is, with their debt, are they structured in a way where they can handle the changes in interest rates? Because all of that other conversation and headlines about the Bellagio, about Walgreens, all of those things, you can see they're so incredibly diversified. None of those things individually are going to tip the scales dramatically. The question is, how have they structured their debt? And the answer is that they have 92% of their debt as fixed and only 8% as variable. So that's a positive. But what about the cash flow to cover the dividend? Well, here I might look at the AFFO payout ratio, which is the estimated coverage ratio for 1 year forward. And if you see a payout ratio here of greater than 100%, that definitely is a warning flag that the company is paying out more dividends than it earns. And here you can see O has a 76% AFFO forward payout ratio, which to me, anything under 90% is a thumbs up. But I did want to point out one article that I really kind of liked, as they summed up the view that I'm taking, which is the following: that essentially the big thing to keep an eye on is the leverage, in making sure that the dividend is going to be covered by the cash flow, which we just took a look at. And so, as it reads here, the rate environment will be higher for longer, so investors need to be concerned about the debt maturity schedule. In other words, when the loans come due, and being very mindful of really any REIT that you invest in, and understanding their entire schedule of not only fixed or variable when that leverage comes due. And so you can see all of the schedule in their recent quarterly filing, but it's summarized here that some debt is due in 2024, with many notes due later in the decade, and that the management team even structures some of these loans in multi-currency borrowings. So their 2023 term loans initially mature in January 2024 and include 2 12-month maturity extensions that can be exercised. And so in terms of the notes, there's about $16 billion of notes with maturities from 2024 all the way through to 2047. And so this is the part that I think is the most important. And this is the key, that essentially I'm going to be keeping a closer eye on any new issuances of debt and any steps that are taken to raise additional money. Because anything brand new is likely to come with higher price tags in the higher for longer environment. And that right there, guys, is really a key moment in investing. That if you only look backwards, you can see things like this, that hey, growth of $10,000 with dividends reinvested for O would have dramatically outperformed the S&P 500, which SPY represents. But this sentence right here is really the key. Thinking about any brand new, higher interest rate loans that this company is going to be taking on. So what am I doing? Well, am I going to be selling, holding, or buying more? I think Realty Income has a very strong management team and a very diversified, very sophisticated financial plan. I think the rising interest rate macro trend has caused an incredible beatdown of not only this REIT, but all REITs. And I do think that we're probably going to hit a peak somewhere in maybe the spring or middle of 2024. And so Realty Income could go down to, as they say here, $45 or even $42, in my opinion. And so I'm going to be continuing to buy because I'm bullish that when rates are finally cut after the peak, that a stock like this is going to rise tremendously. And I'm interested, quite frankly, in locking in that 6% rate right now, and then riding the compounding for the next 5, 10, and 20 years. But again, the two things that I'm going to keep an eye on are the leverage and initiating any new loans, and that cash flow to cover the dividend. But I'll leave you with this, dreamers. If you're getting a little bit nervous about REITs and owning individual REITs, as you think about buying across all of these different types of REIT sectors, then another idea I have for you is to VNQ and chill. Because something like the Vanguard Real Estate Index Fund is an opportunity to hold a wide variety of all the different kinds of REITs in one fell swoop, including O. And you can see how VNQ, which is a broad REIT ETF, has been beaten down along with the rest of them. So if you're willing to zoom out and believe that REITs in general are going to bounce back post the high interest rate environment, and you're looking for something super conservative, which has a pretty low expense ratio and not too bad of a yield, this might be one to take a look at. Well, that's it for today. If you want a richer real-time experience with me, you can always follow me on Instagram or Twitter. And if you're doing your own research using Seeking Alpha, feel free to find the link below to subscribe if you want, no pressure. As always, I encourage you to do your own research, then implement and learn by putting it into practice. And as a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor, so keep in mind these videos are for entertainment and inspiration only. I'll see you on the flip side.